In 2008, the S&P 500 lost 37% in a single year. If you retired that January with $1.2 million in your 401k, you watched almost $450,000 evaporate in 11 months. But here's the twist. If you stayed invested and did nothing, that same portfolio was back above its old high by 2012. And most retirees never see the one chart that would have told them that in advance. By the end of this video, I'm going to show you the exact chart I put in front of every client who's ever called me in a panic during a crash. I've been a CPA for over 25 years, and I've sat across the table from more than 1,000 retirees during 4 separate market collapses: 2000, 2008, 2020, and 2022. Here's what most people miss. The fear isn't really about the market, it's about not knowing what's normal. So today I'm walking you through 7 things this chart reveals. About timing, about withdrawals, about what actually sinks a retirement portfolio. Drop a comment letting me know which one hits closest to home. Let's dive in. The chart itself, rolling 20-year returns. Here's the chart. It plots every rolling 20-year period in the S&P 500 going back to 1926. Not a single one, not one, has ever produced a negative return. I had a client, a retired engineer named Walter, who came into my office in March 2020 wanting to move everything to cash. I pulled up this exact chart. I pointed to 1929. I pointed to 2008. Every 20-year window, still positive. He didn't sell. By 2024, his portfolio had grown 60% from where it stood that day. The takeaway: if your money has a 20-year runway, the chart says the crash you're staring at right now is already statistically a rounding error. And that's the part nobody talks about. Most retirees aren't actually investing for tomorrow. They're investing for a horizon they've never bothered to calculate. Why average returns? Lie to you, Vanguard has published data showing the S&P 500's long-run average annual return sits near 10%. Most people hear that number and assume that's what they'll get every year, like clockwork. Now, I'm not saying the average is wrong. I'm saying it's useless for planning a withdrawal. Averages smooth out years like 2008's negative 37% and 2013's positive 32% into a single tidy number that no real year ever looks like. I had a client, a retired school teacher named Diane, who built her entire budget assuming a steady 7% return every single year. The first year she was down 18%. She called me convinced her plan had failed. It hadn't. The plan accounted for variance. Her assumption about averages didn't. Here's the actionable piece. Plan around a range of outcomes, not a single average number, and build in a cash buffer of 12 to 24 months of expenses so a down year never forces a sale. Stay with me, because this matters. The next point is the one that actually determines whether retirees run out of money. Sequence of returns risk is the real enemy. A 2021 study referenced by Dalbar found that the order returns arrive in, not just their average stock, determines how long a retirement portfolio lasts. 2 retirees can earn the exact same average return over 30 years and end up with wildly different outcomes depending on whether the bad years hit at the beginning or the end. I had a client, a couple named Frank and Rosa, who retired in 2007 with $1.5 million. The crash hit them in year 2. Because they were also withdrawing $60,000 a year on top of the losses. Their portfolio was down to $780,000 by 2009, nearly half gone, and not from the market alone. The takeaway: the danger isn't the market dropping, it's the market dropping while you're pulling money out of it. That combination is what does the damage. Here's where it gets interesting. There's a specific window in retirement where this risk peaks, and almost nobody is told about it. The 5-year danger zone. The riskiest period in any retirement isn't year 1. It's the 5 years before retirement and the 5 years after US, what some retirement researchers call the fragile decade. A crash inside that 10-year window does more permanent damage than the same crash hitting at year 20 or year 25, simply because there's less time and less remaining capital to recover. I had a client, a retired pharmacist named Tom, who retired in late 2007, dying right into the fragile decade, right before the crash. We restructured his withdrawals early, pulling from bonds instead of equities during the downturn. By 2013, his portfolio had fully recovered, while a colleague of his who retired the same month with no plan was still digging out in 2016. The actionable piece. If you're within 5 years of retirement in either direction, this is exactly when you build a buffer, not after the chart turns red. And here's what happens next. Most advisors don't even mention the tool that protects this window. The bucket strategy. Most retirees have never heard of this. Is the strategy I build with almost every client now. Split the portfolio into 3 buckets: cash for years 1 and 2, bonds for years 3 through 7, and stocks for everything beyond year 7. When the market drops, you're not selling stocks at the bottom. You're spending from cash and bonds, while the stock bucket, the one with the 20-year chart behind it, has time to recover. I had a client, a retired federal employee named Linda, who used this exact structure through the 2022 downturn. She never sold a single equity position at a loss. She didn't need to. Her bucket was already funding her expenses. The takeaway: the bucket strategy doesn't predict the market. It just removes the need to predict it. But that's not the worst part of skipping this step. The next mistake compounds quietly for years before anyone notices. The withdrawal rate trap. For decades, the 4% rule was treated as gospel. Withdraw 4% of your portfolio in year 1, adjust for inflation after that, and you're statistically safe for 30 years. Here's what most people miss. That 4% figure was built on historical market conditions that don't always match today's starting valuations or bond yields. Some current research suggests a more conservative starting point, closer to 3.3% to 3.5%, depending on the market environment at the moment you retire. I had a client, a retired airline pilot named Carlos, who insisted on withdrawing 5.5% because that's what his neighbor did. By year 9, even in a reasonably good market, his portfolio balance had dropped by more than a third faster than projected. The actionable piece: your withdrawal rate isn't a fixed number you copy from a podcast. It's a number that should flex with guardrails, cut spending slightly in down years, allow more in strong ones. It happened in the 70s, it happened in 2000, it's happening now. Every generation rediscovers that withdrawal rate, not market timing, is what quietly determines longevity of the money. Why the IRS and Social Security timeline changes everything. The IRS requires required minimum distributions starting at age 73 for most retirees today. The Social Security Administration's own data shows that delaying benefits from 62 to 70 increases the monthly payment by roughly 77%. Most retirees treat these as 2 unrelated dates on a calendar. They're not. The years between retirement and your RMD age are often the only window you have to control your taxable income through Roth conversions, through strategic withdrawal sequencing, before the IRS effectively makes that decision for you. I had a client, a retired surgeon named Dr. Reyes, who used those years between 65 and 73 to convert a significant portion of his traditional IRA to a Roth, paying tax at a lower bracket than he would have paid later. By the time RMDs kicked in, his required distributions and his tax bill were a fraction of what they would have been otherwise. The takeaway: the chart we started with tells you the market will recover. It says nothing about the tax bill waiting on the other side. That part takes planning, not patience. So here's the framework I actually use with clients, the one this entire video has been building toward. First mistake: treating every market drop as information about your portfolio, when it's really just information about this year, not about the 20-year chart your money is actually riding on. Second mistake: withdrawing money without a bucket structure, which forces you to sell at exactly the wrong moment every single time a downturn hits. Third mistake: ignoring the tax timeline, RMDs, Social Security timing, Roth conversion windows, until the IRS makes the decision for you instead of the other way around. Here's what I want you to do right now. Pull up your own portfolio statement. Find the year you plan to retire or the year you already did. Ask yourself honestly, do I have 2 years of cash set aside? Do I know my actual withdrawal rate, not the one I assumed? Do I know what my RMDs will look like at 73? If you can't answer those 3 questions clearly, that's not a market problem. That's a planning gap. And it's the one thing the chart can't fix for you. If you remember nothing else from this video, remember this: the market has never failed to recover over any 20-year period in its history, but your plan can still fail even when the market doesn't. If you want to see how your own numbers hold up against this kind of stress test, I'd encourage you to run through a self-assessment using the checklist linked in the description below. In the next video, I'm going to show you exactly how the bucket strategy is built year by year with real dollar amounts. so you can see precisely how much should sit in cash, how much in bonds, and how much stays invested for that 20-year chart to do its job. If this helped you see your own retirement a little more clearly, subscribe. There's a lot more of this coming. I'll see you in the next one.